It is the 17th of January and Parliament is missing an MP. Yes, the resignation hasn't yet gone into the Speaker from Golriz Ghahraman. And until the resignation goes in, I was just thinking, when I resigned from Parliament, mine was a long, long time ago. Gosh, that's 27 years ago. No, 28 now. Good grief. Is that long ago? Well, sort of proof, in actual fact, that the phoenix can rise again. But anyhow, when I resigned from Parliament, you actually literally had to hand the Speaker your handwritten, or at least signed, resignation. I don't think an email for suffice. Golriz Ghahraman is in hiding somewhere. She still will not front up to the media or to the public of this country and explain any of her actions. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But she doesn't appear to have resigned as of yet. So she is still drawing an income from the state. Then Parliament is due to convoke not next week, but the week after. Yes, that's right. So Parliament convokes in about 12 days' time, I think. It might be 13, actually. It's Tuesday the, what would that be, 24th? I think Tuesday the 28th or 29th, might be even Tuesday the 30th. Is it 30th of, I don't know. It must be. Tuesday must be the 30th of January. So Parliament will convoke on that day. And Celia Wade-Brown, the former Mayor of Wellington, will be sworn in as a new Member of Parliament to replace Golriz Ghahraman. The interesting thing about Celia Wade-Brown, I thought she'd lost her mayoralty, but I just wanted to correct myself from something I said yesterday. She didn't. She actually beat Kerry Prendergast, who was quite a sort of ballsy, conservative, short blonde hair, business-loving, probably the last business-loving mayor of, in actual fact, Wellington. Got to be honest with you. Yes, she actually beat Kerry Prendergast for the mayoralty. She was the first Green mayor in this country. And then she won again. She was re-elected and then retired. She was replaced by Labour Party Mayor and candidate Justin Lester, who was meant to have had an awfully long term as the Mayor of Wellington. And everybody thought, well, here is a bright young firmament in the Labour galaxy. But he was defeated 3 years later by Andy Foster. And just to, add to all this sort of comings and goings and musical chairs aspect, Andy Foster has now lost his seat at the last election to Tory whānau 2 years ago, end of 2022. And now here he has popped up in Parliament as a New Zealand First List MP. So there you go. So I'm just trying to think how many MPs that have been have been mayors of Wellington will there be? Oh, just the two of them, Celia Wade-Brown and Andy Foster. Can I say, I had a phone call this morning from a dear friend of mine who has, in his life, suffered from mental illness, and to a great and distressing degree. And he and a number of other people that I've talked to since I went off air at 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon are deeply, deeply offended that Golriz Ghahraman and the Green Party have been prepared to use the mental health excuse, and it is a mental health excuse, to excuse criminal behaviour from one of their number. And that the mainstream media seem to have bought this specious line that Ghahraman is mentally ill as a result of some quote-unquote extreme stress response. I don't think I've ever listened to so much crap in my life as I've listened to coming from the Green Party and from their sympathetic media commentators over the last 24 hours on this particular issue. Golriz Ghahraman is not mentally ill. She said she was 4 different times in her media statement that was released yesterday. 4 times she said it. And then also said and lied that she wasn't going to hide behind mental health as an excuse, but spoke about nothing else. Shaw and Davidson, the co-leaders of the Green Party, then basically hyperbolically illustrated that the Green Party and the Truth are two completely different entities by suggesting that she had suffered from enormous stress as a result of being under attack, presumably through social media. I would presume that's the only place you can be under attack. Can I just say, as somebody who, ever since social media has been created, has been under almost daily attack from anonymous sources, whether they're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, and this is me speaking, there's not one part of me in responding to social media attacks, which have been over decades now, when I think about it, have I ever thought I must go out and steal high-end fashion goods on a regular and relatively, on a very regular and actual fact basis. I've never once thought, as I have encountered these attacks upon myself, my partner, my family, my children, I've never, ever, can I say, ever thought my way of dealing with the stress is to go out there and immediately steal something. Now, can I also say, I'm not unique. Far from it. There wouldn't be anybody who serves in public life, whether they are the Prime Minister, a Cabinet Minister, a Member of Parliament, a prominent media personality, Sean, for example, Sean Plunket, Martin Devlin, who is not currently and ceaselessly attacked personally and anonymously on social media in this country. It's a disease, I think, social media. And I found the easiest way to do it was simply not to be on it. So I've always regarded Twitter, I have to be honest with you, I think it's called now X, isn't it? I've always regarded that as something that drunk people do to spit their bile and venom at the world when they are at home. And I'm sure that there is a correlation between the third glass of wine and Twitter, for example. And the fact that you can actually do it anonymously and that the media take this seriously, I mean, that happened from day one when Twitter came along. People with anonymous, they'd never print anonymous letters, but for God's sake, you start to take some diseased, addled, angry and upset individual pouring out their venom on a nightly basis, usually drunk. Seriously, I mean, it's about at that time that the mainstream media, in my view, that was it for me. I mean, I long questioned whether or not they were honest, upright reporters of truth and factual detail. That was all, you know. And I'd long considered that the moment that press gallery journalists started, or any journalist started having opinions that they published, they'd lost all objectivity, and proved that pretty much so by the publication. No. But once they started taking anonymous social media accounts seriously as somehow representative of the New Zealand body politic, that was it for me. I just went, nah, the mainstream media are stuffed. And to be honest with you, they have been stuffed ever since. But can I say, there isn't a personality in this country, there wouldn't be one, who would not have received similar venom attack, personal denigration and character assassination on social media outlets in this country and abroad. There wouldn't be one. So there's Golriz Ghahraman is in actual fact receiving nothing that 119 or 120 other MPs are not experiencing on a daily basis, but anybody in public life. Now, I know that might be a bit of a shock for people who aren't in public life, but can I tell you, it's not for us who are. And you've got two answers to it. One, you can say, this is the bile and venom of clearly diseased and addled people, which is pretty much where I come from. I mean, not pretty much where I come from, that's where I live, you know. And I'd take them no more seriously than I'd take somebody who owns, 17 cats. I mean, it's just they're the same sort of people. And they used to be in Cherry Farm or in Lake Alice or in Oakley, but there they are now, and they've got a Twitter account. That's pretty much the way I've always seen it, so I don't take them seriously. And I also know something else too, through having been public life for 30, 40 years, and that is this. If people threaten you, they're not going to do anything. You never need to be worried. I got plenty of death threats and bullets arriving in the mail and in my letterbox, personal letterbox. Can I be honest with you? No one who threatens you is, in those sorts of political or public circumstances, is ever going to do you harm. In fact, they are the last people who are going to do it. The people who are going to attack you, the people who literally are a physical threat to you, are the people who never tell you they're coming. But one day they'll be there. They're the people who do harm. So let's just deal with this Ghahraman nonsense straight away. This woman, no matter how vile some of these people might have been on social media, will have, in actual fact, suffered nothing worse than anybody else. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, if this person was under so much stress and the Green Party co-leaders, Davidson and Shaw, were aware of it, they said they were, you should have seen the stuff she was getting, as they did in their stand-up yesterday, why didn't they do something about it? I mean, it says something to you about the Green Party co-leadership, but the Green Party in general, that if you did actually have a member of Parliament who was suffering, quote-unquote, an extreme stress response, one, they didn't know, but they were aware, apparently, of all the venom that was poured in her direction, and two, that they didn't do anything about it. And three, and this was the point that was made to be my associate this morning, my good friend this morning, who has suffered egregiously from significant and severe mental illness in the past. The third thing is, if you are suffering mental illness and having an extreme stress response and apparently traumatized by everything that's going for you, you don't go out in the public with the kind of glee that Golriz Ghahraman has had over the last 6 months. You don't decide that you are going to attack people personally for being white in this country. That's right, just for being white. You don't decide that you're going to decide that Israel and the Jewish state in general is some form of genocidal, maniacal organization, and then state such publicly. And then you don't decide to go with a mate, it would appear, and go to high-end fashion stores on a relatively regular basis, I would contend, and start stealing stuff. I mean, none of those are ethical or even recognised responses to trauma or extreme stress. In fact, last night I went on all of the psychological and psychiatric sites that I could find in the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand, and tried to find an example of extreme stress response leading to shoplifting. And you know what? Couldn't. In fact, exactly the opposite. People tend to go into their homes, tend to withdraw from society when they're under extreme stress, tend to consume more alcohol or drugs, don't sleep, fret, are suicidal, self-harm. There's a whole series of clinical symptoms that demonstrate exactly what Golriz Ghahraman says she's suffering from. But none of them involve leading protest marches, calling out people for being white, and also deciding to steal stuff with a mate. And that will be the interesting thing of the police investigation for me, which is the fourth aspect of this, because Ghahraman was accompanied in a couple of cases that would appear by other people who must surely have been aware of what she was doing, just quietly. So it'll be interesting how that police investigation plays out. Now, I have very little faith in New Zealand police to, in actual fact, bring charges on this matter, and if they are going to bring charges, it'll be solely as a result of public and probably media pressure, to be honest with you. But I am going to argue, and I am going to resist significantly and aggressively this whole notion that everything that this woman has done is because of a mental illness. It annoys me and it upsets me that with Justice Minister Kiri Allen, again another left-wing lovey, and now another left-wing lovey, Golriz Ghahraman, their resignation is somehow not their fault. That they haven't done anything wrong, whether it's crashing cars and running away from the police when you're the Minister of Justice, or alternatively deciding to steal stuff. And can I say something else to you? And I haven't been wrong so far, so I'm just going to put this out there. There are 3 instances or 3 allegations, all right, if we're going to be clinically and legally perfect this morning, there are 3 allegations of shoplifting that have been associated with Golriz Ghahraman. If she was obviously innocent of them, she wouldn't have resigned from Parliament, for God's sake. So, I mean, you know, just a little bit of logic 101 should be applied to this. Can I say to you, what if you listened to Shaw and Davidson yesterday, and I did, I listened to the broadcast live, it became immediately obvious to me is there are more than 3 allegations. What if you go back and listen to the stand-up of the co-leaders from the Green Party yesterday, they were told that there are other allegations, plural, putting the Scotty Boutique allegations to another side. So they were aware and are aware that other allegations are likely to arise. In fact, I think those were exactly the words of James Shaw yesterday. Now, where do you think he got that information from, James Shaw? I'll tell you where he got it from. He got it from Golriz Ghahraman, who would have said to him in her private conversation, I'll come back to the Greens in a moment because they also misled New Zealand over this particular issue too, but I'll come back in just a second. But it is clearly obvious that Golriz Ghahraman in her conversations with Shaw and Davidson over last weekend told them, and it's very clearly obvious, that there would be other allegations because she's been doing it for a very, very long time. Now, this isn't a failure of mental health. This is a moral failure when you steal stuff. Golriz Ghahraman isn't guilty of some form of mentally addled action. She is guilty of a failure of moral character. And it's that failure of moral character which saw her steal and then consequently resign from Parliament. To hide behind mental illness, as Kiri Allen did, the former Minister of Justice in the Labour Party, is to offend everybody in this country who is genuinely mentally afflicted. There are genuine people out there who are struggling every day to get by, to just survive another day. Genuinely affected by the most appalling of clinical depression, of schizophrenia, of mental afflictions, much of it, I have to say, chemical and inherited and unfortunate. Others provoked and if you like, predicted by the trauma, ceaseless trauma that has really tough stuff, from child abuse to losing loved ones, to losing children. There are a whole series of traumatic events that has forced some people into the state of mental dereliction that they are now. For Golriz Ghahraman to associate herself with those people and then use it as an excuse, which she did. I'm not using this as an excuse, she did. Bollocks, you didn't, girl. You used it 4 times. You used your mental health in that statement. Now, the other thing is, gutless woman. Gutless. She's also refused to front up. I think I'll put a statement and then I'll hide behind the Green Party and their co-leaders who are now going to be running this camouflage flack, camouflage crap, about poor me. Well, not poor me, girl. You deserve to be brought in front of a district court. You deserve to be charged for your offences, and you deserve, in actual fact, at the end of the day, to be called out for your lack of moral character, for your inability to understand the difference between right and wrong, and for your inability to even now recognise that that's the real problem here. There are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of New Zealanders who are mentally or have suffered mental illness in this country, to the point where they have killed themselves, to the point where they are atrophied for their entire lives, to the point where they've attempted suicide. Those people, they are the true victims of mental ill health in this country, not you, Golriz Ghahraman. You decided that this was fun. This was something cool to do. You had a self-possessed, narcissistic attitude to yourself. It's clearly obvious in all the interviews, particularly relationship to your being, your status, and your fashion. I think you're an appalling narcissist who cannot face the fact that you did wrong and that you have a moral issue to address, not a mental health one. And for you to be aided and abetted by the Green Party is just appalling. But that also leads to the next question of the Green Party. Oh, you might say, well, Golriz Ghahraman's gone now. There's the problem. It's her problem. Oh, no. We now know we can't trust the Green Party. We now know they're a bunch of prevaricators and liars. We now know that they are not prepared to front up. We are now know, or to be honest, to the New Zealand media, let alone the New Zealand public. They are, at the end of the day, public servants, the Green parties, their MPs and their leadership. They're all paid for by you and me, the taxpayer. They are accountable to us. But they have been hiding this issue, hoping it would go away. The only reason the Green Party ever responded was that finally someone, probably pissed off that the Green Party knew and that the police weren't doing anything, finally went to a media source. In fact, it was a blogger that broke this first of all, and then News Talk ZP picked it up from that blogger. But it was a blogger who in actual fact said, I know something, and they put it on their blog and away it went. It was only then that the Green Party started to respond, and they responded in a deeply inadequate way. They were never honest with the New Zealand public or with the media as to what they knew, when and why. They stand condemned at the end of the day also for also dragging out the mental health excuse as some form of way of excusing immoral, illegal and a criminal behaviour. And can I just say to the mainstream media who've sucked this all in over the last 22 hours, you're the problem. I mean, is it because she's attractive, Golriz Ghahraman? Is it because she has your same political sensibilities? Is it because she was a refugee? Is it because she was brown? Is it because you like her because all the liberal causes that you harbour, she was on the front of as well? Is it all those reasons that you are going so soft on her, and you went so soft on her from when the moment the allegations arose, and you're soft on her now? Nobody's tracking you down. Is that the reason? Because can I tell you, if that was a National Party, white, middle-aged, heterosexual member of Parliament, and let's just make him conservative as well, can you imagine the firestorm that would have broken upon him, everybody associated with him, and the party from which he came? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Mainstream media, you would have eviscerated that individual, and you've done it before with such people. When it's one of your own, oh no, you hide the glove, don't you? Those are my thoughts. What are yours?